All right, so with this video, it's going to be kind of like an intro to InDesign, which is another Adobe Suite program. It's really good for a combination of text and pictures, almost like a magazine layout or a newspaper layout or a book layout. And in Photo 3, for the final project, we may be making some sort of narrative with photographs and some text, whether that's a children's book or it could be um, a, a fairly short essay. I'm going to show you some different ways on how to use the program. So in order to find it, you would click on your Windows icon. It should be right here near the top, and it's going to be Adobe InDesign. Especially when you open it for the first time, it may take a while for it to open up. I've already had it open, so that's why it popped up so quick. So if this pops up, we would hit New or Control N, and then we see something like this. And in our page size, we see 51p0, which is picas, which is not normally used. I can't even think of when it would be, but we know that letters 8.5 by 11, so this is technically 8.5 by 11. But if you wanted to change the size, let's say you wanted to make it 11 by 14 inches. So if you went 11 and then you typed in IN and hit tab, it'll automatically convert it to the picas for you. So if you want 14, just make sure you put the IN in there, and then it'll automatically convert it for you. And that can be portrait, orientation, or landscape. If you were going to do a book, you may want to do landscape. If you did 8.5 by 11 landscape, so if we went back here, letter 8.5 by 11, and we went landscape, and then we hit OK. And we put a guideline in the middle. It's called half letter. So the idea of folding your pages in half, and then you get technically 4 pages per one sheet of paper. So you got the front side and back side of each folded half. So in order to make a book paginate properly, the order of making sure your page numbers go in the correct order, that would be pagination. They need to be in multiples of 4. So if you see a book, sometimes it'll have blank pages in the front and or back. The reason that is because the pages don't necessarily have to do with anything with the story, but there just needs to be multiples of 4. So like if you had 16 sheets, that would paginate properly, and so on and so forth. But so right here, if we had this, and we would see we have tools over here. We have a frame tool right here with a shortcut of F on the keyboard, which is we will use that very much, which you would just kind of click on that, and then you would make some sort of box, and that's where a photo would go into, which we'll get into that into a different section. We have your selection tool, direct select, much like Illustrator. You have your page tool, which is kind of nice because you can actually adjust the size of your page fairly easily, much easier than it was in the past. So you could even shift it like that. And you have your text tool, which is another thing that we will get into in a different section, but basically your text. So you would have some sort of text coupled with a a series of photographs or a photograph per page, and there will be different ways that you can approach this. The nice thing about InDesign is that it is a program that is suited for text. So you have just as much control over every aspect of your text, if not more, than, let's say, Word or Google Docs or something like that. Or if you've used a Microsoft Publisher, this is a much more advanced version of Microsoft Publisher. So you can do drop caps, which is taking the first letter of maybe a page. Sometimes you'll see that in a novel, and making it bigger or a different font. And you can even so you can change your font size, all that, just on that one. You have the orientation of your text, if you want it left or center or right. You have justified, center justified, left justified, fully justified, which is one thing that you would see maybe in newspapers. Sometimes you'll get a single word on a line that's kind of just oddly spaced out, and that's because they use this form. There's other tools in here, like a pencil tool, a pen tool, which you can use for design purposes. But right now, we're going to kind of focus mostly on text and combining with photographs. And we will get into, at another section, we will get into some, if you go to window, and then you have, like, we'll get into these styles. So especially character styles, paragraph styles. I think either way you wanted to make your book, whether it was like a little short story, essay with pictures, or if you want to do a children's book, which would be kind of like 1 or 2 sentences per page with a photograph. The paragraph styles will definitely help out quite a bit. And so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of mention. You got swatches over here. I mean, it's going to look different than, let's say, Illustrator or Photoshop, but you have your pages over here on the right, layers, which I wouldn't necessarily say that you would need to really focus on layers all that much, but pages comes in handy if you need to add pages. You can kind of click on this. It looks like a new layer icon, and you can see that it starts setting up your pages. So if you wanted for it to paginate properly, then you would have 16 pages or more. So you can also, so another thing too, if I go to File, New, Document, so this pops up. Something to keep in mind, uncheck facing pages when you make a PDF of this later on for the finished product. It just looks better without it being facing pages. And you can actually even put the number of pages that you wanted in to begin with. So if you wanted 16, which I'll have a page number for you with the assignment. Usually I go with a 20-page document. So we're going to hit OK. But you can see right here, unlike this one where they're connected right here, this one, they're not facing. So they're just, it's really the same thing. It's just when you make a PDF, each page will be on its own separate thing, which makes it look nicer. But yeah, so there'll be other sections. It's a pretty extensive program, but there will be some other things that we'll go over